am a wife and a mother and an insurance agency owner, a friend, and a PTA advocate. I am so excited to talk about all of the things that I find most precious here within our community, within our lives, and within our faith, friendships, and relationships. Here on Heather's Most Precious. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Heather's Most Precious. We are so excited today to speak with James. And y'all, this has been a really fun start to the educational series of kind of seeing what life is like in the classroom, in the school for the teachers, and looking forward to next week as we start seeing from the administration side as well. But first, I do want to introduce you to James. James, tell us about yourself.
Hey, Heather, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
My name is James Gaither. I teach at the Howard School. I teach economics and government. I like to play music in my spare time. I like to read. I like to play golf. Like to hike, like to backpack, all the fun stuff. This is my second year teaching at Howard, and I'm excited to be on with you to chat a little bit about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me, I know it's your second year at Howard. How did you even get into teaching?
That's a good question. Okay, so I was for 6 years working for a nonprofit ministry that did overseas mission trips. So a lot of high school groups, youth groups, church groups, and most of the trips were sports based. So they would play live games, set up tournaments, set up clinics in like the Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, Panama. And they would do that for about half the day, and then they would do philanthropy projects for the other half. So whether it was going to like sugarcane villages in the Dominican and feeding those villages, or building bunk beds for kids that were sleeping on floors, it was a lot of really awesome stuff. But it was great. But I was in the office, I was raising money, I was setting schedules, I was doing fundraisers. And I really started to, as I got older into my 20s, I started to think like, okay, what is it that you want your life to be about? I feel like you go. I went to college at Georgia Southern. Go Eagles. I was a economics major, and the reason I was an economics major is because I kind of was indecisive on whether I wanted to go into business or whether I wanted to teach and coach and teach economics, something like that. So at that time, all you had to do was have the degree, and then in Georgia, you could take a test called the GACE, and you would be eligible to teach in high school, to teach the content,
Okay.
So I kind of always had that in mind. But then kind of Tennessee made it a little more complicated. I think it's even a little more complicated now in Georgia, where you have to have some sort of educational degree or coursework, So that always that prevented me from kind of making the switch. I was like, I don't want to go back to school, that kind of thing. And, as you get older, you kind of think life's going to go certain ways, things are going to fall certain ways. And then as they're not falling that way, you're like, wow, okay, this is my life. What am I going to do with it? So I really kind of faced those existential questions like late into my 20s. And then the pandemic hit. So all the 6,000 travelers a year that I was coordinating and things like that pretty much got put on an immediate hold, So I went down to 2 days a week with this organization, and for about 3 or 4 months of the pandemic, we were furloughed. Then after that, it went to two days a week. So during that time of being furloughed, I took off to the north woods of Wisconsin and the upper peninsula of Michigan, and I backpacked and camped for like 3 weeks.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so I was really out there all by myself, getting to know myself real well.
Absolutely. You and nature.
Yeah, I had plenty of time to think about life and what was next. And I really just decided, like, this is the time to go for it. Like, you've wanted to be a teacher. The things that were holding you back, they're not so much holding you back.
Mm-hmm.
it was really impressed on me, like with my faith to, what is the usefulness of a faith that's based on like, all right, you believe these things, and so that's the extent of your faith. I started to really feel pressed to match up my whole life with what I would say that I believed in terms of the Christian faith, and so a part of that was like not just thinking certain things, but aligning my life with it and then making my life's work out of it, like putting it into action.
I love that.
I kind of see it like if you read something in scripture or something wise in a book or something, it's like that's like a match being lit. Mm-hmm. But it quickly goes out if you like do nothing with it,
right.
But if you match it with action, then that fire can catch, that fire can grow, and I really felt like teaching would give me the opportunity to kind of match what I was thinking as far as loving others, be in the hands of Christ. I was thinking like every single day I'm going to have a platform to go do that, and I'm not somebody in public that goes and like preaches on the street corner or something, but I was like, I could live this out with action,
Absolutely.
And so, I really in the woods made the decision like, all right, that's what I'm going to do, So I go back to Chattanooga, I go back home, and I immediately was like, that was like the word I was thinking. It was like action. So I applied at UTC. I sent letters to UTC about being a graduate assistant because I was worried about paying for graduate school.
Oh, wow.
So I get accepted. I go talk to the people in the School of Education, and within a few weeks, now the graduate assistant starting in the January semester, and I'm enrolled full-time in school. So I was 2 days a week at this organization, 3 days a week at UTC, and then I was working the weekends at Ace Hardware. So I was on a tear.
You had all the time in the world.
Yeah, and that's when I met Michael. Eventually came to UTC. Michael Cross, our mutual friend. And then, so from there, I was there for 1.5 years, and then I got hired at Howard. And that's kind of the process of how I decided to become a teacher.
That's awesome. Now, I want to revisit a little bit of your story. First of all, I want to go back to where you first started, right? When you were kind of scheduling these trips in the mission field. Was that hard to be on the kind of clerical end of that position instead of actually being in the field?
It made it to me, it almost felt like the missionaries that we were that I would talk with all the time and talk about, all right, this kind of group's coming, they want to do this kind of thing. I always kind of felt like they were like the ones really doing the work, and I was just like in a posh office, like I almost felt like an imposter in some ways, like I knew I had a role to play, but it was asking so little of me. Like it didn't feel like enough for me at that time. I wanted to go, but so I had a desire to do more, a draw to do more, but I also I didn't necessarily feel called to go to Latin America and do it, So you start to look around and you're like, all right, there's enough to put things into action right here. Awesome. Something that kind of I wanted something that demanded like more of me than just like 9 to 5. This is what I do, and then I go do what I want.
Absolutely, and I'd be a part of.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like the mission of teaching, it does that. It checks that box.
Kind of brings that full circle
for sure.
Right, kind of what you were missing. Not that you weren't playing a role, but I know when you're stuck behind the desk, it doesn't feel like you are a piece of that, the action that you were saying. So do you now, so now I'm jumping to another part of your story. This is fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you're in the woods, right, spending time trying to figure out your next steps, did you feel like the Lord kind of called you onto that trip, or do you feel like you were using that trip to figure out what the next step was, what he wanted for your life, what that looked like?
I definitely think that it was maybe it was both. I had always wanted to go to the North Woods of Wisconsin because like I'm a big Green Bay Packers fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So are you too?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
That's awesome.
So I had been to 2 Green Bay games at that time. So I had been up to Wisconsin.
I'm so envious.
Yeah, I'd been to Lambeau Field. It was like hallowed ground, and every time I was up there, people would be talking about the Northwoods and how it's so serene and untouched, and there's tons of lakes and tons of camping spots, and not many people know it. It's like a hidden gem kind of thing, So when I got this time, I was like, all right. I drove one day. Well, actually, I drove straight to Chicago.
Wow.
Had a deep dish pizza with a friend who lives in Chicago. And then
Good choice.
And then as rush hour is starting, I'm in my car leaving Chicago, okay, let's go, let's beat this traffic. I get to Green Bay. I stayed in a hotel. The next day, I went to the Packers Hall of Fame, did all that stuff,
cool.
and then headed 3 hours north from there, and then I was around no one,
Right.
But that was definitely part of my plan, was to kind of really have time to think about what was next, because I kind of knew my time at this organization was ending. Even though I love the organization, it was great, but I kind of knew with the pandemic, with what I was doing, it's not that I had outgrown the role in any way, but I was becoming mature enough to do more, to take on more of a capacity, that kind of thing. I wasn't at first when I grew while I was there,
Of course.
But so it really was kind of a time to reset, think about what's next, whatever direction that may be, think about what I really wanted to do. I had never really thought about that. I had always just kind of okay, there's this opening, there's this option. I like this one, I'm going to do this, So to really hit that reset button, and to intentionally think about those things, intentionally journal through those things, that was kind of the purpose of it. And the key thing the thing I remember is I had teaching in the back of my mind for a while, but the thing that really, the word I kept getting was what is holding you back? What are you waiting for? I had always had something that I felt was holding me back. I don't want to go back to school right now. Or I'm worried about this, or, I've got a house payment, money. It's can I afford to go back to school? Can I stop working full time to go pursue this?
Right.
And kind of with the pandemic, all of those things that were walls, were okay, here's a window of time that they're just not here anymore. These walls don't exist anymore. You need to go,
Might as well use it as an opportunity.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it went.
I think it's always amazing when the Lord opens doors, right? I think as things align with His will for your life.
Yeah.
Because you think about that, the pandemic, as much as none of us are yay, pandemic.
Right.
But if that wouldn't have happened, it wouldn't have shifted your job in a way that would have allowed for the realization, okay, I don't want to say outgrown this, but it is time for something else. And maybe, allowed, as you said, the match to not only be lit, but you to take that and allow that to burn into something more, into that next career option. And what I noticed the most about your story too is as you felt compelled to start at UTC, right? You're in school now. That just how God allowed that. It seemed pretty easy, and just His provision for you, and not only getting into the classes but with the intern, all of those things seem to line up pretty effortlessly.
Yeah, the GA job,
right.
The weekends at ACE, but 2 days at SCORE, but also we need you 3 days at UTC. Work week is 5 days. That's perfect.
Absolutely.
There definitely was a lot like that. And then I would even say I was running blind through that. Okay, I know I need to get this certification. I know I need to take these tests. Now I'm certified. Now it's time to go get a job. Where am I going to go? Even at that time, I wasn't sure where I was going to land, So I had gotten certified to teach English, and I had been certified to teach economics. And I really economics is what I always wanted to teach. I just did English because I knew I needed to get hired somewhere. And I thought that would give me a second option,
Okay.
So I got offered a couple English opportunities, and then Howard offered me to teach seniors economics. And it was just like, all right, well, this is a perfect fit too. So that became a no-brainer. I decided like within a day. Mm-hmm. So that's how I ended up at Howard, knowing nothing about Howard really. Mm-hmm. And, then there I was.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you feel like, obviously seniors is kind of a different ballgame, right? Yeah. Is there a lot of pressure that you feel, now you have these, they're not little babies anymore. You're about to launch them into the real world, and you're helping them to decide if they're, going to further their education or what that looks like, helping them walk through life. Does that put pressure on you as a teacher? Yeah. So that's a good question. And I'm not sure. I don't think pressure is how I would describe it. Yeah. The reason that I wouldn't describe it is like those questions are the exact questions that I want to be there to answer. Like that's why I want to be a teacher. Like I knew that I needed the older, the better. For summer school, I did middle school, and it was fun-ish. It was fine. It was. It was at middle school. Maturity-wise, the students don't always understand. Like if I give you a foot, at high school, if you're cool with a student, you hope that they're going to see that and reciprocate that, and you're going to be able to build mutual respect. You can definitely build mutual respect with a middle schooler, but it's a different process to build that, and I hadn't learned that, so I was trying to give them freedom. The next thing I know, the room was crazy. The room was going crazy. Yeah. I hadn't quite learned that one on the fly. So it made me realize that like in high school, it's like you can build a mutual respect with the students. That was a really good rapport for me. And my favorite thing to do with the students is the things that an older student would face. Okay. So teaching economics, I get to kind of weave in a lot of personal finance. We talk about needs and wants, and having to take care of your needs first, and then you can spend on your wants. But guess what? You don't have to spend every penny left over on your check on your wants. You can open a savings account. You could buy a CD. You could, we talk about stocks. We do the stock market game where they pick a stock at the beginning of the semester, how cool. And then they compete. Every week they tell me like where it stands. I record it, and then we see like proportionally who would have made the most money by the end. We talk about a lot of the students at Howard. They're real into starting businesses and entrepreneurship. So we talk about sole proprietorships, partnerships. Later on, if they really want to start like a corporation, I want to give them that knowledge to where later in life they can do something that could help improve their quality of life, Absolutely. And that's what I love about the older student is almost all of them have jobs in the community. So when you talk about saving or money, it's not theoretical or it's not something in the future. Like they want to save and get their own apartment now or next year. These are things that their ears perk up for because they're facing it, and we talk about how like when I was growing up, there was a real pressure. Like if you weren't going off to a university, it was almost like you had become some sort of failure. You were going to stay home and never leave. Like it was just this pressure that we felt growing up. I would agree. And now I feel like the world is really changing, but I want them to know that it's changing. Like, guys, there are tons, the trades are wide open for tons of money. People are retiring all the time, and the young people are not replacing those jobs, as they need to be replaced. So, go to Chat State, get a technical degree for 2 years that's paid for by the state of Tennessee right now. You don't have to go to UTC, UTK, Memphis, or some other school and take out a big loan when you don't even necessarily know what you want to do, and then it either works out or it doesn't. I was like, you can do that, but I want you to make a conscious decision about doing that. Right. Like I support that. If you have a career in mind that requires a 4-year degree, I want you to go get that degree. But I don't want you to just go to the 4-year school because that's the next thing to do, And so we talk about
those things and goals and stuff like that. And so I love it because I feel like I get to have conversations that impact quality of life, and it's an audience that is ready to receive it right then. You know, they're making those decisions.
And you're able to impact them.
Yeah.
And that's the hope with, and also encouraging.
Yeah, for sure. I love to encourage the students. I love to, just like, you know, when they come in my room, like I'm going to give them a fist bump. I'm going to say, what's up? I'm going to check in with them. Like, it's just like, it's like, okay, if I feel grumpy right now, do I sit here and just like go up there and be grumpy, or like, do I try to put that behind me and show love to these kids because I've got a captive audience to pour into, you know? And it's like, you either did that or you didn't do that. Mm-hmm. And if you did do that, it was a successful day. We had a good day at school, you know? And so that you kind of got that mission in mind. It's like, are you fulfilling that mission? And hopefully it's yes, you know? And for me, it's awesome, you know?
Yeah. Well, and kids need that. You never know what they're going through, and I'm still calling these 18-year-olds kids, right? But no matter what they're doing, I think so many of us think that only kids in elementary school need that love, or only kids, right? But you don't know what their home life is. You could have been the best part of their day. And you're right. You either put aside your junk to make this an intentional space for them to learn and grow and see, right, that they are valued and loved right where they are. Or you're just like everybody else. So.
Yeah. Especially like at Howard, there is a majority of the kids are dealing with major stuff at home, you know, whether it's their living conditions or whether it's single parent households or whether it's just poverty, or kids that they may have young kids in the house that may be theirs or maybe a siblings or maybe a parents that they are basically being like a parent to, you know? Wow. So they're dealing with a lot of things that I didn't have to deal with. I'll say that, you know? So I feel like the opportunity is, the opportunity for that action or to fulfill that mission is stronger at a place like Howard.
So I know you've touched base on this a little bit throughout sharing about life kind of in your classroom, what that looks like with your students in their home lives. Tell me, what is life like at Howard, just kind of in general?
Yeah, so I would say that going into teaching at Howard, I didn't know what Howard would be like, and I had only heard perspectives from the community that maybe not necessarily was a part of Howard, you know? And so a lot of people, when I tell them I'm at Howard, they're like, oh, that must be challenging or things like that based on just perceptions that they may have. But I would say Howard's a great place to teach. And there's a lot of great kids. 99% of the kids are great kids who just want to do what they're told. They want to learn. There's like any other kids, they want to hang out with their friends. If they play sports, they're into their sports. If they are into the band, they love the band. The thing I love about Howard, though, is how the focus is getting students like career or job or work ready, you know? Mm-hmm. So we have different institutes based on what students want to get into. So we have 2 world-class chefs who teach culinary, and they have basically come out of the field and they're now at Howard. So if a kid wants to become a chef, wants to work in the restaurant industry, they get all the training that they would need to go be successful at Howard.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we have an awesome partnership with Rock City. So students leave Howard at like 1 o'clock. They take a bus to Rock City. They work at Rock City. And then at like 7, a bus will bring them back to Howard. So they can make money during the day if they're seniors and they've already got a lot of credits, but it's called work-based learning.
But then the transportation is taken care of. So they're not having to depend on anybody else.
Yep. The transportation is taken care of for them. We have students who do welding. They learn how to weld and they'll leave Howard and do internships and things like that with welding. And then we also have a whole department that's hospitality and tourism that's like hotel restaurant management. If you wanted to be a manager of a restaurant, that kind of stuff. But then there's AP courses for students who know they want to go to a university, you know, and then there is the Construction Career Center, which just opened with a partnership through Chat State, where seniors are leaving at like noon to go there for the rest of the day, and they're already starting their dual credit
Oh my goodness.
work on how. So basically, when they graduate, they are really close to being work ready. So
Fantastic.
that's my favorite thing about what's going on at Howard, like academically, is how based on what a student wants to do, they are being given the tools to go do that at Howard.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people don't necessarily. I feel like they just don't know that.
No.
It's just like we haven't gotten that out enough, and we've tried. It's on the news sometimes, but to the average person, it's just maybe something they aren't aware of all the great things that are happening. I know I didn't know.
No, I didn't know either, and we've been a part of this community for so long. I think it's amazing though to hear not only how you're helping them in the classroom, but all of, the excitement that y'all are bringing to show them all the diversity between any opportunity that you want to take, whether it is extending your education, right? Continuing that in college or in a trade, or you are teaching them a skill that they can, with construction, they can go straight through and different things like that. I think that's amazing, the opportunity that y'all have afforded to them by making those real. And then especially the transportation piece is huge for parents. And I'm talking like as a working parent, that would be hard to get them to and from. So I think that for me speaks volumes to the lengths that y'all are willing to go to help them see what is possible.
And that's another thing that's different about Howard than like a school that I may have gone to in high school. Even seniors, I would say only about 10% are driving.
Right.
Most are taking the bus to school. So that transportation is critical to allowing them to get out and see things or do things or work even. A lot of seniors, they'll take an Uber to school every morning or a Lyft.
Wow.
And it's just because they either haven't prioritized saving for a car, or they've just got so many other things that they're having to pay for within their family that they haven't been able to take that step yet. But that transportation piece is huge, and it certainly helps give a lot of students a lot of opportunity, for sure.
Absolutely. That's awesome. It's been really cool kind of to hear your story. Now, I do want to know, I know we've talked with both elementary and middle, and I know you're not getting gifts like they do in elementary school, but what are ways that parents can support you? How would you want a parent to come to you if maybe they've heard something going on in your class, or they have concerns, or they want to provide encouragement for you? How would you prefer that a parent interact with you or a family from one of your students?
Yeah, we're pretty open. I have a pretty open door policy. I have parents that will email me, and because a lot of the students, they do their work on Chromebooks, and then we put in their grades on something called Power School, and their parents have access to Power School. So if a grade, if something was off or they didn't turn something in, I've gotten emails, hey, what was going on with this, and I'll just tell them how that situation happened, and hey, well, we can still get it in, that kind of thing. Or we talk, we do call logs at Howard where we try to do 2 positive calls, 2 maybe need some encouragement calls bi-weekly, so we do have that relationship with parents as long as they want that. We know a lot of the parents are busy, they are working. So we're not trying to hound them, a phone call every single day or something. But basically, we just try to be available. So if there is a problem with the student, or if we do need to chat about something with the parent, phone calls, emails, I want that communication to be open, where it's like we're one team. I want to be one team with the parent. If the parent is having a problem at home with the student, if they want to talk to me about maybe talking to the student, I want to be available for that. If I'm having maybe a small issue with the student in the classroom, I want to make sure the parent knows that this isn't against them. This is just something that I'm seeing, and how can we both kind of work toward this, In terms of classroom needs, like from the community, one thing about Howard is they have their Chromebooks, but they don't have to have, we don't ask the students to bring a lot of other things like pencils, notebooks, papers, because they're not We actually don't allow backpacks at Howard.
Okay.
So there's some security components to that. But also, and I think we may be talking about this next, like Howard has grown exponentially in size in terms of the population of the students over the last decade. So there's over 1,500 students at Howard, and the school was built for about 800.
So y'all are crammed in there.
So we're packed in there, and there's so many students that there's not enough lockers for everyone. So basically, students don't use the lockers right now.
Okay.
So what I was saying, like with the community, with the parents, is like anytime a teacher can get school supplies, that is absolutely fantastic, like for the teacher, because we provide the paper, we provide the pencils. If we're doing any kind of art, we provide the markers, the crayons, whatever, like if it's in a different kind of class, like most of that is coming from the teacher or from teacher supply hubs from the county or something. But we're always looking to get more, because if you give out 20 pencils every day, you're getting probably 10 back every day.
And they're broken. Half of them are broken.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say, just like to help a teacher at Howard, school supplies is great. And then what teachers at Howard probably want from parents of students is just open communication, and for them and for us to be on the same team, and for a parent to realize that, like, we love your student. We know you have the ultimate love for your student, but let's both work together to try to help the student if there is an issue. Or if your student's doing great, I want to let that parent know so that they can encourage their student, or we can just work to build that student up together.
Absolutely. I love that. Your willingness as a teacher to support the student as one, right?
Yeah.
You kind of become that family. And I think also wanting to celebrate with them. So it's not just, I feel like there's a lot of times when there's a lot of parent involvement. If there's a disruption in your class or bad behavior, things like that, instead of focusing on the students that are actually getting it and doing it and choosing to make good choices. And so I love that you're willing to not only say, hey, we need help here, we need to help supporting them, but also, hey, let's celebrate them too, because I feel like that's so important to give the encouragement to help propel them forward, and to want to continue to give their best. Because I feel like sometimes if the negativity is what's focused on, then some kids may end up lowering themselves to get to that space just for that attention piece. Yeah. So I think that's awesome. I'm so grateful, James, that we were able to speak today, just for everything that you've been able to share. This whole educational series has been about bridging the gap from the classroom to the community, and how we can support teachers in our community. Also knowing what it looks like for you every day and how we can support. Before I ask one final question from you, I do want to say, for anyone who's listening, if you are interested in purchasing a gift card that could be used for school supplies for the teachers of Howard, or if you are interested in wanting to drop off supplies, definitely reach out to us. We will definitely start a collection for them. Would love to be able to support them in this way. We're talking anything that you would need in a classroom, from pencils, pens, calculators, paper, notebooks, anything, whether it's loose leaf, computer paper probably as well, crayons, markers, anything like that. Definitely reach out. We would love to have that help. Now, kind of in closing, I would love to know, James, I know we've heard your story as far as getting into education. If there is someone out there that either has econ or business that may want to look at now getting into the classroom, or a student that's in school thinking of becoming a teacher, or maybe they're exploring that, what advice would you give them? I know teaching looks a little bit different today than it did once upon a time. What advice would you give to them?
Yeah, I would just say, I know sometimes in potentially the media or potentially parts of communities, like, I feel like I feel like the profession of teaching is like, it's not necessarily that it's being looked down on, but everyone thinks it's like a tough time to be a teacher. Everyone recognizes it's a tough time to be a teacher. And in some ways it is, but in other ways, teaching is still like interacting with students and uplifting students and preparing students for life. So if that's important to you, it's still a great time to be a teacher. You know, like, it's like, yes, there are challenges, but there have probably been challenges for decades all across life in every profession, you know, so there may be challenges in the profession, but if your focus or your mission is, I want to teach students this skill, I want to pour into the youth who are going to be the future of our society in like a decade, 20 years, you know, and ongoing, like, if that's something that is still important to you, it's still a perfect platform to do that. So, you know, don't let those anxieties or the kind of naysayers hold you back from fulfilling that mission, because the mission's still available and we still need good people to go after it, you know?
Absolutely. I love that. Well, James, once again, thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you for allowing us to see also just the amazing things that the Howard School is offering to their students. And I'm sure that the rest of the staff is probably just as great as you are and just as encouraging, to their students and to the community.
Yeah, I will say that there are a lot of great teachers, faculty members, the administration at Howard is great. Our principal, Dr. Ware, she was the 2019 Principal of the Year for the entire state of Tennessee.
She's a big deal.
Yeah, so we have
awesome.
good leadership there if you're looking to go there. And there are a lot of teachers there who really care, like the mission that I'm talking about in terms of getting kids ready for life, getting them ready for work, pouring into them, showing dignity to students who may not receive dignity. There are tons of teachers at Howard who follow that same exact mission. And that's very encouraging for me.
Absolutely.
I didn't know what to expect in terms of other faculty when I first came there, but I've been wowed and encouraged by the quality of people who are after that same action as me. So it's awesome. Come on.
That's fantastic. And for one final challenge, y'all, as you know, there are different perceptions about wherever you are, whether you are in this community, within your community, there are schools that you would probably have heard things about that may not be, in your opinion, great, or maybe you have not, don't have the best test scores or don't have whatever. I would encourage you to, I hope that this will help change your perspective of that once again, that judging from the cover, right? But I would hope that you would continue to support your community. All of your schools need help. They need love. All of these students, as James reminded us, right? These kids are the future of our country. One of them is going to be president one day. And that can either be a really great thing or a really scary thing. But I think the best thing that we can do is support, the education in our communities, whether that is public or private or the families that choose to homeschool. But I would just encourage, instead of being scared with certain schools or choosing not to support, definitely allow this to help change your mind, realizing that there is good if you choose to see that. So I am looking forward to next week when we see the administration side of the school. And I hope that you will join us then. Thanks, y'all.
Heather's Most Precious is brought to you with love by the Hendrickson Agency, an insurance agency serving all of Georgia and Tennessee. The Hendrickson Agency, properly protecting your most precious possessions. Support for Heather's Most Precious is provided by Study.com, which offers SAT and ACT study materials and even has resources for AP and college credit courses. Listeners of Heather's Most Precious get 30% off their first 3 months of any subscription level with offer code PRECIOUS. Just go to Study.com and use offer code PRECIOUS at checkout. Heather's Most Precious is produced by Chattanooga Podcast Studios and is part of the Podnooga Network. Find out more at ChattanoogaPodcastStudios.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back soon with another episode of Heather's Most Precious.